Students ask me all the time, is what I am experiencing real or fantasy? Now, this is a very fascinating question. I need to give you a little bit of context to tell you how I navigate this question to see whether or not they're going into fantasy or they're actually having real experiences, real psychic experiences, to clarify. When I go into someone's mind, I'm looking at all the different parts. Now, what happens to the mind as we grow up, from when we are born, even in the womb, our mind starts to fracture into different parts, personalities, personas, influences, emotions, and all these different parts need attention and care. And if you have trauma, a part of your mind will fracture at this point. As an example, say you got bullied terribly in high school when you were 13, your mind will fracture into a 13-year-old, and that specific 13-year-old will have needs and wants and will need attention. But what happens usually with these different parts is we suppress or repress them, or don't really fully understand the needs of these parts of the mind, and therefore they become unconscious, and we find ourselves in patterns that we can't seem to break no matter what we do. This is because these parts haven't been acknowledged, healed, and the needs haven't been met. So sometimes what will happen in the mind is the mind will create fantasy. And one reason that the mind does this is as a form of escape. Generally, when people have a lot of trauma, they can be very psychic due to how much the nervous system has been activated to gather as much information as possible about the situation that they're in. Also, what can happen is heavy disassociation, where it's not safe for the person to be in the body or in the situation that they're in. The mind shuts down, disassociates, and creates fantasy. And therefore, we go into that fantasy. So sometimes it can be a bit of both. We can be experiencing something that is real, but also because of how clever and how much our mind wants to keep us safe, it can create fantasy for us to believe in. So what I do with a lot of my students is I teach them the difference between what is their mind and what is their intuition. And that way they can gain clarity around how their mind is trying to manipulate them because their needs haven't been met, and where their psychic abilities and intuition actually come in. Just because we do experience some fantasy doesn't mean that our psychic abilities aren't valid. We can experience both, and I've been in this situation as well. So if you're interested in learning about the difference between the mind and the intuition, you can reach out, ask me questions. I'm an intuitive coach and a professional psychic.